Does God bless us to this extent? Well, friends, we got to make sure we have our heart in the right place. We're going to make sure that we are faithful to Him first, that we're not faithful to Him because we want His blessings, or we want God to bless us and make us rich and make us powerful, or whatever it is. Let's continue reading. Messages to Young People, 102, paragraph 2. If your steps are ordered by the Lord, dear youth, you must not expect that your path will always be one of outward peace and prosperity. Do you see that? If your steps are ordered by the Lord, don't expect that you will always be blessed and have the path of peace. The path that leads to eternal day is not the easiest to travel, and at times it will seem dark and thorny. But you have the assurance that God's everlasting arms encircle you to protect you from evil. He wants you to exercise earnest faith in Him and learn to trust Him in the shadow as well as in the sunshine. So friends, we need to be careful that we don't take Uzziah as the man that we aspire to be. Why? Look, God does not bless everyone in that way. Let's not expect that our road will be just a bed of roses that we can just walk through and God will just bless us at every step. All our enemies will just fall on our left and our right and we have nothing to fear and no trials whatsoever. No, friends. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's circumstance is different. And if there's anything that we ought to aspire to be like in regards to Uzziah, is not his riches. Is to seek the Lord our God. Is to make sure that we seek Him with all our heart, not so that He can bless us, but that we might know Him and we might understand Him and we might be like Him. You know, I don't believe that Uzziah, he was doing this just so that God would pour out all these riches and temporary blessings and earthly blessings upon him. No, I believe at the very beginning, at the tender age of 16, his motives were right. It was in the right direction. He was following God because he loved Him and wanted to make sure that God was his first, last, and best in everything, especially when it came to him being king. He understood that he needed help. But let's keep reading, shall we? Our High Calling, 189, paragraph 3. The pen of inspiration says this: Satan employs every means which he can devise to overthrow the followers of Christ. With marvelous skill and cunning he adapts his temptations to the peculiar temperament of each. Those who are naturally selfish and covetous, he often tempts by throwing prosperity in their way. He knows that if they do not overcome their natural temperament, the love of mammon will cause them to stumble and fall. His object is often accomplished. When the riches of the world are offered them, many eagerly grasp the treasure and think they are wonderfully prospered. The strong love of the world soon swallows up the love of the truth. You see, friends, prosperity can actually become a snare to us. It's not always a blessing from God. It can be something that Satan throws our way. And that's why it is so important that we lay the foundation like what Uzziah did, to seek God with all his heart, especially when he was young. It's possible for us to get rich, that it comes to this point where we set our eyes and our affection and our thoughts upon it, and it eventually swallows up the love of the truth. It ends up becoming a snare to us. We have to be so careful. Well, you might be thinking, what's in it for me then? Why would I follow God if He doesn't want to prosper me, right? You know, when we start thinking along those lines, then we need to take a step back and really assess our relationship with Jesus, or why we are Christians in the first place, or why we decide to follow God. Maybe our hearts are already changing and focusing on the world more than we focus our attention on God. And you know, friends, that's the way that many other religions treat their gods. God, I do this, and God, I do that. Now bless me, bless me. You see my devotion to you. You see I'm doing this and doing that. Please bless me. Friends, maybe even the riches that you have in your heart, in your life, are already now starting to change your heart. Do you see that? And we got to be so careful. Let's keep reading. Christ's Object Lessons, 53, paragraph 4. In this formative period of the children's life, the responsibility of parents is very great. It should be their study to surround the youth with right influences that will give them correct views of life and its true success. Instead of this, how many parents make it their first object to secure for their children worldly prosperity? All their associations are chosen with reference to this object. Many parents make their home in some large city and introduce their children into some fashionable society. They surround them with influences that encourage worldliness and pride. In this atmosphere, the mind and soul are dwarfed. The high and noble aims of life are lost sight of. The privilege of being sons of God, heirs of eternity, is bartered for worldly gain. Friends, even as parents, I myself, a father of 3 children, we have to think carefully how we surround our children with the different types of influences and what we allow, what sort of influence to come into their lives. But you know, usually as parents, we want them to succeed. We want them to support themselves. We don't want to worry about them when they get older. But then we must ask ourselves this question: but at what cost? We got to be thinking about what is more important for our children: a right and good and righteous character, or just worldly money and not caring about religious principles and in their lives at all. So what is more important? Yes, we need money to survive, but we got to make sure it doesn't become our sole object of life. In Psalm 62 verse 10, the Bible says, if riches increase, set not your heart upon them. We're warned not to set a heart upon riches. As it increases, let's be careful to keep the modest lifestyle in line with the life of Christ, one that would reflect a true Christian, God's character. And what might that be? I'm not condemning anyone that drives an expensive car or lives in a very super expensive house, but let's make sure that we are characterizing, or we are representing rightly the life of Christ. Anybody with a little bit of riches needs to be careful.